Crossed the George Washington Bridge going into New York City, I had already run over 2,600 miles. And every day I gave an inspirational keynote speech to at-risk audiences, inspiring them to live their dreams, to dream big, to act big, and then to never give up and cross the finish line. So every day it was a marathon distance and a keynote speech for 100 consecutive days. From California to New York, never a day off. Most of my days were 20 hours long, and it would start over and over. So whenever people hear about this, they ask 3 questions, and typically it's in this order. The first one is, how many sneakers did I go through? Just like these, 16 pairs. They're minimalist type sneakers. The next one is always, how much did I eat? Twice as much as you eat on a typical day. So I ate about 5,000 plus calories a day. So that's 500,000 calories from California to New York. But then after all those kind of gimmicky questions are over, it always gets down to the core of it. They ask why. Why would you do that? All of that training and the work and the pain. All of the scheduling and the setting up the speaking engagements and the pain. All of the hours on the road and the pain. So what everybody wants to know is why? Why would somebody do that? Why would somebody go through all of that effort to do something? Where it started was when I was at a ball game with my friend. We're up in the cheap seats, and we're watching the game. And if you were sitting there next to us, you would have heard my friend ask or say, says, check out these guys, the pitcher and the shortstop, all of these guys, either team, it doesn't matter. They're living their life. They're playing their childhood game that they love. And they're out there every day doing it. So I responded back to him, what about the coaches and the managers, the umpires? Even the freaking bat boy is doing what he loves. I went home that night after that conversation and I couldn't sleep. And I was mad, I was angry, because all my life I had been living in the cheap seats, watching other people play the game. And it wasn't just ball players, but it was everybody. It was authors and speakers. It was CEOs, millionaires. All of those people were doing the thing that I wanted to do, but I'm living my life in the cheap seats. And that night I said, enough. Enough is enough. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's when the seed was planted and things started to change. How often in your life have you lived in the cheap seats? Watching the game, not in it. And if you are in the game, which game are you in? Are you playing Little League? Adult recreation? Are you in the minor leagues? Or are you in the major leagues? Are you playing full out? That's what life is about, right? It's playing full out, not holding back. I mean, what happens after 80, 90 years? We're gone. Life is too short to hold back. It's too short. So we have to go out. We have to get in the game. We have to play in a way like few other people play, especially this audience, because you guys are the leaders. That's what this is about, isn't it? At TED and TEDx. We're the ones that change the world. So people will tell you something's impossible. I had my naysayers for certain. It was virtually unanimous. When I came up with this idea, I'm going to run across the country and I'm going to speak every day, and I got excited and I told them all these different things. They all said I was either insane or it was impossible. One or the other. Unanimous decisions from everyone. So I've had people tell me what's possible and what's not. Impossible is a big word that people throw around, small-minded people, to justify what they have in life. Because it's a whole lot easier to accept what's given to you than to go out and make that difference, to make your life by your design. So things that are impossible are only impossible until someone does it for the first time. The obvious ones, the electric light bulb. You all know that story. Putting 300 people into a plane, flying it over a country in a few hours. Sending a man to the moon and bringing him back. All thought to be impossible. 1,000 songs into your pocket. Until the first person does it. Then it's no longer impossible. Then it's, wow, what else can we do beyond that? I have an intimate experience with impossibility. When I was 14 years old, I was riding home on my bicycle. I'm riding on the right side of the road with traffic. My friends are on the left side of the road riding on the shoulder. And as I was riding home, we're coming up to this little crest in the hill. Drunk driver comes barreling over the other side. She sees my friends and she swerves. And I imagine what must have happened is she looked back and said, "My gosh, that was close." And she never looked forward as she crossed the double yellow line. Hit me head on, crushing my bike below her big metal bumper, launching me into the windshield and up into the air. The police report said that my body flew 50 feet before crashing to the ground. They sent me to the local hospital where they couldn't handle that kind of trauma injury, so they sent me down to New York City. And they worked on me for hours. When my parents arrived, the neurosurgeon, the guy who works on brains and skulls, from where I had fractured my head, he comes out and tells my parents, "If your son survives the night, he'll be a vegetable for the rest of his life." My mom, with her beautiful blonde hair, collapses into my dad's arms, and they cry, and they pray. Pray for a miracle. For 4 days, my mom and my dad sat by my bedside. My mom never left that chair. She held my hands even while she slept. 4 days later, I wake up from a coma. 2 weeks in the hospital, a year of cast and rehabilitation, 2 years of headaches that would literally drop me to my knees when I have an episode, and then years of other issues that challenged me. I am the impossibility. The doctor said I shouldn't live. This leg should be shorter. I shouldn't be able to walk, no less run across America. What's impossible? It's all up here. Nothing is impossible. So if some guy who's not even supposed to be alive can run across America, I didn't tell you the best part. I just started running 2 years ago. Just 2 years ago. So I came up with this idea, and then I trained, and in less than a year, I trained and then ran across the country. So a non-runner becomes one of the most elite runners in the world in less than a year. So what is impossible? Nothing is impossible. It is up to you to decide what is impossible for you. Are you going to listen to those other people who say, "No, you can't do it"? The ones who are living small. Who does it benefit to live small? Nobody. Nobody. It doesn't help them, it doesn't help you, it doesn't help the world. That's what we're about, whether you're here live in Las Vegas or you're home watching this online. This audience are the people who change the world. And the world expects that of you. And it's not always going to be easy. It certainly isn't. When I was running across America, I get about 2 weeks in, I'm into Las Cruces, New Mexico. If you've been there, it's a valley city. And as you come down into the city, it's basically flat. And this was the day that my body said, enough. It shut down. It literally shut down. 10 o'clock at night, I had 25 miles behind me that day. My goal was for 30. And I couldn't stop until I got to my goal. So I sat down for a few minutes and I rest. And while I rested, I said, I thought about it. I could call the crew, right? I could have them come pick me up in my support vehicle. But if I did that, what would have happened? If I gave up some miles today, what happens tomorrow? And then the next day, and then the next day. At some point, your dream goes away. So I got up, I walked a quarter mile, sat down again. This time I literally laid down and put my feet up in the air to flush the lactic acid out of my legs. Didn't really help. Something that should have taken me 1 hour took me 4. 2 a.m. I stumbled into the RV, laid down on the bed and crashed. Deepest sleep that I've ever had. You got to push through those hard parts. That's when your character is defined. It's not when life is easy. When life is easy and going your way, that's easy. Anybody could do it if that was the case. Everybody would run across America or start a billion-dollar company if it was easy. But it's not. And it's supposed to be not easy, if you want to use those terms. You could use other terms as well. People use the term sacrifice, what you have to give up to achieve your dreams, to live life large, to play in the game. It's not sacrifice at all. It's just doing something different than everyone else does. It doesn't mean it's hard. It doesn't mean you're sacrificing. It just means it's different. That's it. I get to Alabama, and I run to the speaking engagement, and then I speak at the event, and somebody comes up to me. I don't know who this gentleman was, but he starts asking me questions. He's asking me about my sneakers and running and all these things that I normally get. And during the conversation, at some point, he says to me, Croix, you know, you can't quit. I'm like, I'm not thinking about quitting, but what do you mean? He says, well, you've spoke to what, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people at this point? And I had. I said, yeah, it was about 5,000 or 6,000 people. And I had given away 5,000 or 6,000 books. Every audience member got a book. The Dream Big, Act Big, same thing we started the talk with. So he says, Croix, you can't quit. I says, okay, why? He says, because if you quit, then everyone behind you that you've talked to will have a reason to quit their dreams too. That kind of hit hard. And then he goes on and says, they'll say something like, I'm just some rural kid from the middle of nowhere in a horrible school district. What chance do I have if Croix doesn't finish? I'm just a waitress trying to get through school. If Croix can't do it, what chance do I have? And those words kind of marinated with me through the rest of the journey going home. And as I went up the East Coast and I started going through the Carolinas, and I think it was in Virginia when this happened, but day 74, I wake up, and emotionally, I'm done. I just want to go home. I've been in an RV for 74 days at that point, running a marathon distance every day. Physically, my body had adapted, and running a marathon wasn't that big of a deal anymore. It was certainly some effort, but it wasn't a big deal. But emotionally, I just wanted to go home. I wanted to see my kids and hug them. Hadn't seen them in almost 3 months. Hadn't slept in a normal bed. Had any semblance of what a normal lifestyle is. And if there was any day that I could have just went back to sleep and not ran, that would have been the day. But I heard that gentleman's voice. He says, if I quit, they'll have a reason to quit too. And I reluctantly got out of bed, pushed through my marathon, did my speaking event, and after a couple days, you start getting to the end of the tunnel, and I could see New York City. I wasn't quite there yet, but I was close enough that as you go through Pennsylvania and Jersey, then eventually you actually get to see the skyline from the Jersey side. Crossing over the bridge, running down Broadway, great big American flag. As I run down Broadway, then run to Wall Street where I finished the race with Hope for the Warriors. They ran the last 5K with me, last 3 miles. But the most beautiful part was that I got to run the last 100 yards with my 5-year-old girl, holding her hand and running with her, holding the flag in the other hand, and a bunch of other kids around us. And it was the most amazing thing I have ever done in my life. All of those 2,600 whatever miles that were before that didn't matter. But that moment is when it was all solidified for me. That was where all the validation was crossing the finish line with my daughter. So what's possible for you? Have you asked yourself that? Have you truly asked yourself, if I could do anything and failure and I would not fail, what would I do? For me, it was, at that point, was running across America. What is it for you? This is an interesting audience because this isn't the typical audience. This is the mavericks and the rule breakers. These are the people, you are the people who won't take complacency, whose status quo is not an option, right? People expect more from you because you're already the leaders. But if you knew you couldn't fail and anything was a possibility, what would you do? I asked myself that over and over and over until I figured out my next thing would be run across America. And now there are other things, obviously, from that are going there. It's what gets me around, and it's kind of what I'm known for. And it's the funniest thing, too, because if I'm wearing shorts, when somebody finds out I ran across the country, the first thing they do is look at my legs. It's hilarious. And then when I tell people I ran across the country, it does not compute. It's absolutely hilarious. But that was my thing. What is it for you? You're amazing people doing extraordinary things already. Do you know that you're only this far from any goal in your life? Your dream life. Anything that you want to do is this far. Anything major that has been accomplished in life, anything extraordinary, anything outstanding, the things that we talk about, people we want to emulate, they're always this far away from the goal. Put your hands up. Put them out just like I have them. About this far in front of your face. Now bring them closer. This is how far you are from your goal. And if you could see yourself, I have the best view. But if anything was possible, what would it be? There are no limitations except the ones you place on yourself. Thank you.